can't wait on their affirmation. You can't wait on their approval. You can't wait on their support. Sometimes you just gotta run and look behind you and say, everybody wants to run, but I can't stop running because we're not believing. Listen to me, hear me. You can't stop chasing your dream just because somebody in your life is chasing you. You can't stop believing in yourself just because somebody in your life is believing in you. You can't stop chasing the dreams of your life just because you know when you do it, you're gonna have to do it all by yourself. You can't wait on their affirmations. You can't wait on their approval. You can't wait on their support. But sometimes you just gotta run and look behind you and say, everybody wants to run, but I can't stop running because you're not believing. Listen to me, hear me. You can't stop chasing your dream just because somebody in your life is chasing you. You can't stop believing in yourself just because somebody in your life is believing in you. You can't stop chasing the dreams of your life just because you know when you do it, you're gonna have to do it all by yourself.
Pause. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of English Live, where we will be looking at the nation's most favourite detective, and we will also be looking at what makes a good mystery. Okay, so first things first, if you are new to English Live or if you just need a reminder, you can download one of these. This one is from a previous lesson, but there's one just like this for every lesson, and that's available in my Facebook group, English Live Resources, and it has 6 different activities that suit different learning styles and different abilities. There's something for everyone that will extend and consolidate the topic that we touch on in this short 20 to 30 minute tutorial. So in that group, I will remind you, you can also put photos and videos of your learners' work. It was lovely to see yesterday so many of you posting really wonderful performances of plays that you'd written and scripts that you'd written. So keep sharing your work, because it's great to get it out there, and it's nice when you start giving positive feedback on other learners' work as well. So do keep that up. So moving on, just a little reminder about the live chat function that is available if you're watching this lesson live. Can I please remind you all that the comments need to remain linked to either the topic that we're looking at today or hellos and shout outs, and you shouldn't be using the comments for any other reason. And if I do spot anything that I think is unkind or unsupportive, then I will just remove the live chat facility from you, so you won't be able to participate in live chat anymore, and I don't want to have to do that. So please just keep it kind and supportive and related to the topic. So let's move on to happier things. Let's have a few hellos for you. So hello to Amy in Hampshire. Good morning to Zane in Silsoe. To Ariane and Iman in St Joseph, from St Joseph's Primary School in the Midlands. Big hello to you. And to Freya, who is 10 in Leighton Buzzard. Hello again, Freya. To Macy, who has a new printer, so she's going to be printing off her PDFs and doing lots of task work today. Lovely to have you with us, Macy. To Thomas and Bella in Buckinghamshire, to Alex in Cambridge, and to Flyer, who is 10 in Kings Lynn. Hello to all of you. Welcome to today's lesson, and I hope you really enjoy what we have in store. So, first things first. We have a starter activity for you today. It's a little bit different to the ones that we've done before. There are some brain teasers. They're to get your brain moving. It's quite small, so I'm hoping that you'll be able to see it through the computer. I'll bring the board right up to you. You've probably seen brain teasers like this before. I found it on the internet, and I can only work out the first 7 of them. So if you can do number 8 and number 9, that's fantastic. So here we go. Bertie, move out of the way. Okay. You can discuss it. You don't need to necessarily write down your answers. I'm going to give you about 1 minute to do this. Off you go. Play. Did you get on all right with the brain teasers? Has it got your brain moving around a little bit today? Well done to whoever it was in the comments who said that number 8 is probably I see you understand. How did I not work that out? So well done if you got any of those. That looks like it could be misunderstood, a walk in the park, 1 in a million, backwards looking or looking back. You're under arrest, stand by me, walking on ice, I see you understand, and I'm still, I don't get number 9, but maybe someone in the comments can tell me that and we'll clear it up a bit later. So we need to move on now. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is this wonderful chap here. Okay, this is an image of a fictional character called Sherlock Holmes, and lots of you will be familiar with the name Sherlock Holmes. You probably have an idea that he is a detective, but there's probably a few things that you don't know about him, and I want to tell you a little bit about Sherlock Holmes before we talk about the mystery genre, because he is the nation's most famous and most loved detective. And also, he's one of the stories of Sherlock Holmes, The Sign of 4, is now on the AQA GCSE English syllabus. So you may well find as you move up through Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 that you do a little bit of work about Sherlock Holmes. So this hopefully will give you a little bit of a head start. So, who is Sherlock Holmes? So he's a fictional detective. He's not a real person, but he is based on somebody who is real. But we will come to that. And he was created by an author called Arthur Conan Doyle, who is a Sir. So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And he was first introduced in 1887. Can anybody work out how many years ago that is? Let's check your numeracy skills this morning. So he was first introduced in 1887. I can almost hear all those hundreds and hundreds of brains ticking over there. So 133 years ago. But even though it was such a long time ago, he is a timeless character. He's still loved and adored. And there are lots of modern interpretations of Sherlock Holmes. So he had a faithful assistant called Dr. John Watson. And Dr. John Watson is a medical doctor who had served in the military, and that sometimes is quite an important component in the Sherlock Holmes stories. So they worked out of Sherlock's home, which was the address is 221B Baker Street in London. Now, if you go to Baker Street after lockdown, you'll be able to find the Sherlock Holmes Museum, and it's not quite at 221B, it's next door. And it is fabulous. So you can go into all of the different rooms. It's I think it's a 5-story building, and it's all set up to look like the fictional home of Sherlock Holmes, and there's a wonderful gift shop in the bottom. So you should definitely pop by and see that. But that is there, and that should give you an indication of how loved this character is. So he was famous for his skill of deduction. So deduction is when you look at all of the facts, and by taking away anything that is an untruth or is not confirmed, then you can reach a final truth. If you want to, you can do a little bit more research on deduction after this lesson. And one of the reasons that Sherlock Holmes is so popular is because many readers try to compete with his skills of deduction, and they try to find out who the criminal is before Sherlock Holmes does, and rarely people do, but my dad would like to think that he finds the answers before all of the famous detectives. So yeah, of course. So not only does he have this fabulous skill of deduction, but he has dedicated his life to knowing everything possible about how to work out how useful a clue is and what information it can give him, with the end goal of solving a mystery. And his character can identify 243 different types of ash, so cigarette ash. And by being able to do that, his character can narrow down exactly what cigarettes a criminal or a suspect or a victim have been smoking, and therefore he could narrow down who he was looking for. And that's a typical Sherlock Holmes thing. He does lots of things like that, where he understands things very well, often testing the air and such like. So Arthur Conan Doyle based Sherlock Holmes on a teacher. So this makes me extra proud. The teacher he based it on was Dr. Joseph Bell, who was a lecturer at Edinburgh University. And he was known for being able to diagnose patients by sight. And that is something that really impressed Arthur Conan Doyle. And so he dedicated Sherlock Holmes's perception skills to Dr. Joseph Bell. Right, is there anything else here that I think you should know? Yes, so Sherlock Holmes is the most popular fiction character, or human fiction character, to be put into film. So he has had 226 films made about him, and the only one to beat him, who's not technically a human character, is Dracula, who had 239. So again, that should give you an indication of how popular and loved this character is. So we're going to move on now. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about mysteries. I think I've spoken to you lots now about Sherlock Holmes. Sorry, I do have a tendency to waffle on a little bit. So what is a detective story? Well, a detective story is where you will find there has been a crime or a great theft, and the mystery or detective genre gives the reader different clues as they go through the story to narrow it down to one suspect and to solve the mystery at the end of the story. So here are a few facts that you should know about a detective or mystery story. So the detective must be memorable, just like our lovely Sherlock Holmes here. The crime must be significant, although we're going to start coming up with our own ideas a bit later, and they'll be less significant. We're going to come up with a fun crime. And the criminal who has done the crime must be a worthy opponent for Sherlock Holmes. So it must be someone whose intelligence is comparable, okay? Because we know lots of criminals today are boring, ordinary, silly, stupid, dull people most of the time. But in your detective story, it needs to be someone who is really interesting and is a worthy opponent for your detective. All of the suspects in the story have to appear early on. We can't just slip them in at the end. We need to know who the possible suspects are at the start. And the solution at the end must appear quite logical. So it must make sense. We can't be sort of having rainbow-coloured unicorns jump out with a clue in the final paragraph. Okay, detective stories don't work like that. Now, I'd like to introduce some key vocabulary for you. We've got a task. So people that are involved in mystery and detective stories are witnesses, suspects, victims, and detectives. I would like you to match these to the correct description. You can either discuss it with your siblings or adult, or you can jot it down. I'm going to give you about a minute and a half to do this, okay? Off you go. Play.
You can't wait on their affirmation. You can't wait on their approval. You can't wait on their support. Sometimes you just gotta run and look behind you and say, everybody who wants to run, run, but I can't stop running because you're not running. Listen to me, hear me. You can't stop chasing your dream just because somebody in your life is chasing you. You can't stop believing in yourself just because somebody in your life will believe in you. You can't stop chasing the dreams of your life just because when you know when you do it, you're going to have to do it all by yourself.
Pause. Did you work them all out? It looks like from the comments, most of you have got a really good grasp on this. I am going to connect them up for you to show to you, but well done to Safa who got them all correct. And let's get a few hellos in quickly because lots of you are asking for shout outs today and lots of birthdays. So happy birthday to Chloe. And also a happy 6th birthday to Sonny in Orpington, who is watching with his brother Stanley, and it's Stanley's first lesson today. Hello to Charlie and Mia, James and Matty, and to Addison in Hampton. Okay, right, let's get on with this. So, a witness is somebody who can provide valuable information. So it's this one down here. Suspects, the people who may have taken part in the crime. And remember, nobody is guilty until it is proven, okay? So your suspects are there. Victims, someone who suffers because of the crime or the mystery. So if it's a murder mystery, it might be the victim has been murdered, or if it's a theft, it might be the family heirloom is stolen from somebody and they would be the victim of that crime. And finally then, a detective, or another word for a detective is a sleuth, a person who attempts to solve a mystery by gathering clues. And that one goes up there. So those are the 4 types of character that we're going to include in a detective or mystery story. And there are a few other elements now that I would like you to consider. So here we are looking to match up definitions for alibi, red herring, evidence, and clues. And these are 4 things that, as I said, every good mystery or detective novel or short story would have. So again, I'm going to give you about 1.5 minutes to match these up, have a little chat about it, and I'll have a look in the comments to see who is getting it correct. Off you go. Play.
believe what you've been told. You can't wait on their affirmation. You can't wait on their approval. You can't wait on their support. Sometimes you just gotta run and look behind you and say, everybody who wants to run, but I can't stop running because you're not running. Listen to me, hear me. You can't stop chasing your dream just because somebody in your life will chase it with you. You can't stop believing in yourself just because somebody in your life will believe in you. You can't stop chasing the dreams of your life just because when you do it, you're gonna have to do it all by yourself.
Pause. So before I give you the answers to these, just a reminder that I don't expect to see in the comments things that are not related to this lesson or to saying hello or asking for shout outs. So this is just a reminder one more time that if you are posting random words, I will remove the live chat facility from you after this lesson. Okay, so let's see how you got on. So an alibi, what is an alibi? Well, an alibi is a story or an excuse a suspect uses to prove that they were not near the crime, okay? So it could be true, it might be a false alibi. So that is something you could always incorporate into your mystery. A red herring is a false lead or a false suspect to throw the detective off track. So this is the twists and turns in the story. So you'll need a red herring. Evidence is something that proves who was involved in the crime. So evidence and clues are a little bit different. Evidence proves things and clues are facts or objects that help to solve a crime. Hopefully you've got all of those correct. If you didn't, don't worry, now you know, and you're going to be able to write a fantastic mystery knowing all of what you know now. So let's move on. A few tips for writing your mystery or detective story. So like I said, normally it would be constructed around a murder or a great theft, and you would have a memorable, interesting detective. So have a little think whilst I'm doing this. What would you call your fantasy detective? What name would you give them? And what could have been stolen to give them a crime to solve? Have a little think about that, because we will come back to that. So, right. So half of the fun of reading a good detective story, if you're going to sit down and read one, it comes from the mental context between you, the reader, and the detective who is trying to solve the crime. And you can almost compete to see if you can get there before the detective does. That's why it's really important when you're writing a story, a mystery or detective story, that you include all of the information that the detective has in your story. So it gives the reader equal chance to compete against the detective to find out and solve the mystery on the end. So that's quite an important element. So have you thought up any interesting names for your detective, and what is going to have been this great theft that this mystery that they are going to solve? Any ideas yet? Okay, right. Well, I'm now going to give you some tips for doing a really gripping mystery. Now, some of these things sound quite challenging, but I will briefly explain them so they should make a lot more sense to you. But these might be things that Key Stage 3 learners might be looking to include, and Key Stage 2 learners, you may well also be looking to include these things. But it may be the case that you just listen about them today and think about using them in the future. So foreshadowing, if you can try to include some foreshadowing, this also creates a gripping mystery story. So foreshadowing is when you hint at coming events using physical signs or symbols, and the relevance of those is revealed a little later on. So some of you will already be familiar with foreshadowing. You can try and include that in your story. Obscure hook. So if you include a semi-obscure hook in your story, it creates just enough secrecy or things that are unknown to make the reader want to continue on and read the next line and find out what's going on. So you don't need to give away everything at once. You can keep a little bit back and gradually drip out that information. Mysterious identity. So you can play around with this. Some characters are not who or what they seem. Who is being true and honest and who is being misleading. Again, if you drip that information out slowly, you can create really interesting characters and mysterious identities. Subvert expectations. This sounds confusing, but it's really not. It just means to give the readers something different from what they are expecting. So they might be expecting specific developments or specific things to happen based on what's been happening in the story so far. And you could surprise them and have a real big twist and turn. And that makes it gripping. That makes the reader want to continue. And urgency, okay? If there's no rush to find out who the criminal is, then the story almost falls apart, okay? It needs to be urgent. We need to find out. Can you include an element of your story that makes the detective have to find it by a certain time, or there will be trouble of some description, okay? So that urgency can make it really gripping as well. Great. So just really quickly want to hear what detective names and ideas for a great theft that you might have come up with. So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds with the music on, pop your ideas into the chat, and I will read some of them out afterwards, okay? Off you go. Play. Pause. Some fabulous ideas are coming up in the comments. So I'm going to read a few of these out. So someone said their detective is going to be called Joe Wicks. Great idea. I wonder if it will be the theft of the PE shorts or something like that. Detective Stone, Mystery Solver Myra. Daniel's detective is going to be called Colban. Mr. Queerandova. And some things that have gone missing. So some mysteries to solve. The stolen Queen's crown. We've got the theft of £100 coat and the theft of Bertie the dog. Well, I hope that doesn't happen. A few more hellos before we tie up the lesson today. So hello to Violet in Sheffield. Hello to Jaya, who's been watching and asking for a shout out. Hello to Aaron in Chester, who has been working really, really hard. Fabulous, well done, Aaron. To Mia and Betsy, who are watching with their dogs, Milky, Chocolate, Charlie and Summer. And I think that's everybody on my list today. Thank you very much for joining me today. It has been a real squeezing everything into 30 minutes kind of lesson. So if you need to, you can just go back to this video later today if you're writing your mystery or detective story, and remind yourself of a few of the things that you might need or what you can do to make your story really gripping. Okay, and a reminder, of course, to get tasks from the English Live Resources group if you'd like to, and to post pictures of your work there for me to have a little look at later today. Bertie, are you going to come and say hello? And Bertie, you're going to say hello to everyone? Hello. Have a lovely, lovely afternoon. Enjoy doing your English work. I'm going to let Bertie go back to Sunbathing. There you go. And I will see Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 learners tomorrow for a lesson on structuring stories. And don't forget, on Friday, we have the Spellathon for Key Stage 1 to Key Stage 4. And you can invite your aunts and your uncles and your school friends and everybody to compete in that, and to see who does the best spellings on Friday. Okay, have a lovely day. Bye-bye. Play.